హలో స్టూడెంట్స్, వెల్కమ్ టు తిరుమల క్లాసెస్. ఈ రోజు నుండి మనం పాలిటీ ఎన్సీఆర్టీస్ గురించి మన యూట్యూబ్ ఛానల్లో మాట్లాడుకోవడం జరుగుతుంది. పాలిటీ ఎన్సీఆర్టీస్ ఎగ్జామ్ కి చాలా ఇంపార్టెంట్. బట్ మన తిరుమల క్లాసెస్ మెయిన్ కోర్సులో ఎన్సీఆర్టీతో సంబంధం లేకుండానే మీకు డీటెయిల్ గా అర్థమయ్యేలా చెప్పడం జరుగుతుంది. బికాస్ దాంట్లోనే ప్రిలిమ్స్, మెయిన్స్ ఇంక్లూడింగ్ ఎన్సీఆర్టీస్ కూడా యాడ్ చేయడం జరుగుతుంది. మీరు పాలిటీ ఎన్సీఆర్టీస్ తీసుకుంటే బిగినర్స్ కి ఎందుకు ఇది ఇంపార్టెంట్ అంటే వొకాబులరీ గురించి, బేసిక్ మీనింగ్స్, కొన్ని థియరీస్ గురించి తెలుసుకోవడానికి ఎన్సీఆర్టీస్ ఆర్ ఇంపార్టెంట్ అంతే. ఇది లేకపోయినా కూడా మీకు మెయిన్స్ క్లాసెస్ లేదా మెయిన్ సబ్జెక్ట్ ఈజీగా అర్థమవుతుంది. ఇట్స్ డిపెండింగ్ అపాన్ ద ఫ్యాకల్టీ. లుక్ ఎట్ దిస్ ఇన్ పాలిటీ. వీ హావ్ టోటల్ 6th to 12th పాలిటీ గురించి మనం ఎన్సీఆర్టీలో మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. అంటే 6th క్లాస్ నుండి 12th క్లాస్ వరకు వేరియస్ ఇండియన్ పాలిటీ కాన్సెప్ట్స్, వాటి రిలేటెడ్ బేసిక్స్ ని ఇక్కడ మనం మాట్లాడుకుంటాం. పాలిటీ మనం క్లాస్ 6 ఎన్సీఆర్టీలు తీసుకుంటే టోటల్ మనకి ఇక్కడ 4 యూనిట్స్ ఉంటాయమ్మా. Unit 1 is about diversity. Unit 2 is about government. What is government? You must know first of all what do you mean by government. And Unit 3 is about the local governments. When I say local governments, it call it as municipalities and Panchayati Raj. Unit 4 is livelihood. What is livelihood? ప్రతి మనిషి బ్రతకడానికి ఏదో ఒకటి చేయాలి. My livelihood is teaching. Your father livelihood might be business, might be a job, might be agriculture. So livelihood, it varies in rural areas, it varies in urban areas. In the rural areas, most of the people having livelihood based on their agriculture. In urban areas, it can be street vendor, it can be a job, it can be a business, it can be any other. We'll be talking about all these chapters in this particular thing. Look at, when I say this Unit 1 diversity, first you should understand what you mean by diversity. Then diversity and discrimination is important. For example, India is a land of diversity, having a religious diversity, linguistic diversity, cultural diversity, food diversity, clothing diversity. Likewise, you see India from north to south, east to west is filled with diversity. For example, you see Ladakh is having different diversity, Kerala is having different diversity. Telugu speaking people have one culture, one language, one kind of particular living style. When you go to north, again they have different language, different culture. Hence, India is a land of diversity. Not only diversity, you should understand discrimination. Whenever there is a diversity, there will be a discrimination. For example, you take a caste system, upper caste, lower caste. You take religion, there is a religious discrimination. You take language, there is a language discrimination. When you go to north, when you go to Tamil Nadu, when you go to Andhra Pradesh, when you go to Karnataka, Kerala, everywhere there is a linguistic discrimination. So diversity is always having something called as discrimination. Here we are going to talk about this too. When it comes to government, people should know what is government first. From morning to evening, people say government not doing this, government not functioning well. I wanted to become a government officer. First of all, what do you mean by government? What do you mean by government? What is the objective of the government? You must know. Beginner, it is very important because without knowing the meaning, how can you go into the topics? Next thing, key elements of democratic government. See, every country has the government. Government is nothing but having a set of rules and regulations and administrating a country or a territory with a particular officials, which we call it as government. But what do you mean by democratic government? Democratic is always, we know, right? It is rule by the people. India is a democratic government. Democratic is nothing but rule by the people. So what is government? What do you mean by democratic government? What are the key elements of democratic government? Next, when you come to local governments, we'll talk about Panchayati Raj. India, almost 75% of India is the rural India. In the rural areas, they are completely administered by Panchayati Raj, Grama Sabha, Sarpanch, ward members. Very, very important. Whereas when you come to Panchayati Raj, we also talk about rural administration and urban administration. When you say rural, we talk about Panchayat. When you say urban, we talk about municipality. We talk about what? Municipalities. In fact, here Panchayati Raj and municipality would be discussed in very lighter note. But when you come to Indian polity main classes, these two topics takes approximately 7 to 8 hours to explain. So which is very clear. In NCERTs, we are just learning the basics. Basics only, just meaning a few related contents. Come to the eighth, I mean to say, this particular unit, fourth unit, livelihood. Here we will talk about rural livelihood, urban livelihood. Livelihood is nothing but on what basis you are surviving. What is your means of earnings is called livelihood. Of course, in the rural areas, livelihood is different based on the caste. In urban areas, livelihood is based on your qualifications and your employment opportunities. I mean to say, the livelihood is different in a rural areas and urban areas. What are the different types of livelihood that we are going to talk about in this particular chapter or in this particular 6th class of NCERTs? This is what decoding the syllabus. But after decoding the syllabus, you see any NCERT book, in first or second page, there is something called as preamble. You open any NCERTs, this is there in that NCERT first or second page. Look at this, the Constitution of India preamble, very important for UPSC. It is there in every textbook. What do you mean by the Constitution of India preamble? I'll tell you boys, first of all, what do you mean by constitution? When you say constitution, which is having a set of rules and regulations, a set of rules and regulations, a set of rules and regulations is nothing but constitution. A set of rules and regulations is nothing but constitution. In basic terminology it is. But look at the Indian Constitution. Indian Constitution is lengthiest written constitution in the world. Remember, Indian Constitution is lengthiest written constitution in the world. ప్రపంచంలోనే అతి పెద్ద రాయబడినటువంటి కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ భారతదేశంది. Indian Constitution is lengthiest written constitution. You see, American Constitution is very short constitution. And meaning, in the world, we have lengthiest written constitution. In the world, we have shortest written constitution. In the world, we also have unwritten constitution. We also have unwritten constitution. For example, some countries are having written constitution. Some countries' constitution is unwritten. Some countries' constitution is the smallest. Some countries' constitution is the biggest or lengthiest. When you come to America, it is the shortest written constitution. When you come to India, lengthiest written constitution. When you come to UK, it is unwritten constitution. When you come to British or United Kingdoms, we call it as unwritten constitution. Means the point is clear here that there are written constitutions and unwritten constitutions in the world. There are small constitutions and there are large constitutions in the world. India is lengthiest written constitution in the world. I'll tell you why is India is the lengthiest written constitution. There are many reasons, but I'll tell you one reason. Due to its diversity. Due to its what? Diversity. That is where I'm connecting your 6th chapter. So, Indian Constitution is lengthiest written constitution because of its diversity. Diversity is one reason for India's lengthiest written constitution. There are many. For example, you see, there are women, there are children, there are different religions, there are different castes, there are different culture, there are different regions, there are different tribes, and many more. Or the provisions related to all of them were adding in one book. Automatically that book become bulkier, which called lengthiest written constitution. So one of the reason for the lengthiest written constitution of India is India's diversity. India's diversity. But our point is like, if you are a citizen of a country living in a particular territory, you must live in the country based on the rules and regulations that are given in the constitution. మీరు ఒక దేశంలో బ్రతుకుతున్నారు అంటే మీరు ఆ దేశంలో బ్రతకాలి అన్న ఆ దేశం యొక్క కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ మీరు ఫాలో అవ్వాలి. కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ ఫాలో అవ్వాలి అంటే కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ అంటే ఏంటో ఫస్ట్ మీకు తెలియాలి. ఆ కాన్స్టిట్యూషన్ ఉన్న కోర్ పాయింట్స్ ఏంటో మీకు తెలియాలి. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, వెన్ ఐ టెల్ యూ దిస్, you look at America. American Constitution is the shortest, but even then it has a concept called as preamble. Indian Constitution is the lengthiest. Even then it has a concept called preamble. What do you mean by preamble in this concept? For example, the preamble is nothing but pre-note. It is what? Pre-note, or it is called essence of the constitution, pre-note of the constitution, gist of the constitution. And the meaning, if you wanted to understand what entirely Indian constitution means, you will understand entire Indian constitution meaning in one go, in one definition, in one paragraph. It is called preamble. So preamble explains the gist of Indian constitution. For example, when you buy any textbook, in the textbook there is a first page called author note. Author note is nothing but author wanted to explain what exactly this book is about. The same way, the makers of Indian constitution wanted to tell what exactly Indian constitution is. For that, they have created a small definition which explains the Indian constitution in holistically. That is known as preamble. But remember, the preamble concept first was there in America. India inspired the concept of preamble from USA. Why, sir? America is such a small constitution having preamble, but India is such a lengthiest constitution, it must need a preamble. That is why makers of Indian constitution in the Constituent Assembly, they have decided that we should have a preamble which explains Indian constitutional essence, which explains the gist of Indian constitution. If you wanted to know what is Indian constitution at single go, no need to read entire book. Just read the preamble or preface, pre-note, essence, gist of the constitution, that is called preamble. You will understand what is Indian constitution, from where it is getting authority, what are the objectives of Indian constitution. Everything you will understand about Indian constitution in single go. That is called preamble. So concept of preamble adopted from USA. But this particular preamble concept was also added to Indian constitution by objective resolution. Asayala Tirmanam. The concept of preamble was added to Indian constitution by objective resolution. Very, very important. Was adopted to the Indian constitution by something called objective resolution. Dine manam Telugulo Asayala Tirmanam antam. But when I say this objective resolution, it was drafted and moved by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. It was drafted and moved by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And a preamble was inspired from USA. Preamble was added to Indian constitution by an objective resolution introduced in Constituent Assembly by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. That is how the preamble was added to Indian constitution. Preamble is also called as identity card of Indian constitution. See, if I have my identity card, when look at my identity card, you will tell something about me. Nenevaru, na parenti, na occupation enti, na address enti. Am I right? The same way, when you read preamble, you will understand about Indian constitution. That is why preamble is known as identity card of Indian constitution. But who gave this statement? This statement is given by M.N. Palkiwala. This statement is given by M.N. Palkiwala. Palakor amme valle unta, palese valle unta, ala gurtu pettukondi. M.N. Palkiwala is a constitutional expert. He coined the word preamble is nothing but identity card of Indian constitution. You understand, right? Preamble inspired from America. Preamble is nothing but gist of the constitution, essence of the constitution, pre-note, preface or identity card of Indian constitution. A preamble was added to constitution or adopted. The concept of preamble adopted in Constituent Assembly by Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru by passing an objective resolution. So objective resolution never passed chesaru Jawaharlal Nehru. As a part of this, preamble was adopted to the Indian constitution. In next lecture, we see what is preamble and then we will go for diversity. That is our chapter 6.